Welcome to Wawasan Wire. Today, we're talking about netizens' reaction toward Hadi Awang's recent call for the current government to be replaced. Now, that statement really set off a huge public debate, didn't it? And it wasn't just what he said, but the timing. It happened during the debate on the 2026 federal budget in the Dewan Rakyat.
Right, Malaysia's lower house of parliament.
Exactly. And it came right after some really troubling incidents, especially around school safety. It felt like he used those moments, those very sensitive events, to really question the government's basic ability to run things.
Yeah, it's quite a calculated move. Not just one complaint, but like a three-part argument aiming to put serious pressure on the administration.
Okay.
So first, the really emotional part.
Mm-hmm.
The safety incidents pointing to, well, a failure in governance. Then he shifted to, the wallet issues, the economy, and these new taxes. And finally, he sort of tackled the political question head on. Why his coalition, Perikatan Nasional, hasn't named their prime minister candidate yet.
Okay, let's maybe dig into that first argument then, the one about governance and safety. Because that seems to be what got people really talking, maybe even angry.
Definitely.
He highlighted this really disturbing idea that schools, places we always think of as, well, safe havens for kids,
The safest place. Yeah.
are now sites of what he called horrific incidents.
And that's where it got rhetorically very strong. He didn't just express sadness about the incidents. He drew a direct line, saying this trend shows deep problems inside the government leadership itself.
Right. He basically said the problem isn't just out there in society, it's rooted in how the country is being led.
Exactly. He explicitly stated that this whole situation suggests something wrong with society stemming from the government.
And he had a pretty stark conclusion on that point. He actually said, and I think these were his words, schools are not safe. What is wrong with the society? Perhaps there is a problem within the government leadership. I think this government should be replaced.
Yeah, that's a heavy statement. It goes beyond arguing about, say, budgets or roads. It hits right at the core of trust. It connects the universal fear parents have for their kids' safety directly to whether the administration is effective or not. So calling for replacement isn't just about policy tweaks. It's framed as needing to fix a fundamental breakdown in safety and order. Makes it feel very personal.
It really does. It implies basically if you can't keep kids safe, you shouldn't be in charge. Okay, so from that emotional point, let's pivot to the money side. How did he use the economy in his argument? What was his main criticism there?
Well, the economic angle was, pretty standard opposition stuff, focusing on taxes and the burden on people. He claimed the government is very rich.
Okay.
But even with all this supposed wealth, they're bringing in new tax schemes. And he described these taxes as cruel.
Cruel, that's a strong word.
Very strong. Because, he argued, they unfairly add to the financial pressure on regular Malaysians who are, let's face it, already dealing with rising costs.
So the framing is not just, this is bad policy, but it's almost like the government is being uncaring or worse, deliberately harsh. Like, you have money, why take more from ordinary folks?
That's pretty much it. The focus was on things like service tax hikes, new levies, things that hit everyday spending.
Right.
And flowing from that, his party, Perikatan Nasional, well, he stated they're committed to pushing hard to replace the government in the next election, using these economic points, especially the perceived unfairness of the taxes, as a central part of their campaign.
Makes sense as a political strategy. Connect a social issue to a financial one felt by many.
Yeah, it bridges the gap from tragedy to a widespread grievance.
Okay, so that brings us to the third point, which is purely political strategy. When you call for the government to be replaced, people naturally ask, okay, who's your alternative? He had to explain why Perikatan Nasional hasn't named a PM candidate.
Yes,
Yeah.
And his explanation was, well, it was quite something. Very revealing about the political atmosphere, maybe. He gave two main reasons.
What were they?
First, he talked about integrity, due process. He said they have a really strict vetting process,
Okay.
emphasizing that candidates are checked carefully for good character, clean background, and, this was specific, they must not have any current court cases against them.
The no court cases detail. That sounds like a deliberate jab, doesn't it? Trying to draw a line between their coalition and maybe others where leaders might be facing legal issues.
Seems very likely. It sets a kind of moral standard that went back for their potential leadership.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
What was the second reason? That one seemed to cause more of a stir.
Oh, definitely. The second reason was aimed squarely at what he sees as the risk of serious corruption and political sabotage. He actually expressed concern that if they announced a PM candidate too early,
Yeah.
that person could be vulnerable to being bought with gold bars.
bars. Seriously.
Seriously. And the image he painted, suggesting the bribe money could even be hidden at home. It suggests a really intense fear of high-level corruption messing with their candidates even before the campaign really starts.
Wow. That's quite a claim. It paints a picture of a political system so toxic that even potential leaders could be bought off. But hang on, doesn't saying your own potential candidates might be susceptible to gold bars raise some questions about, well, the strength and integrity within their own coalition?
That's the tricky part, isn't it? On one hand, yeah, it highlights the extreme tactics he thinks opponents might use. But like you said, it could accidentally imply a lack of confidence in the moral strength of their own potential leaders.
It's a gamble then, trying to justify the delay by saying the system is just too dirty right now.
Exactly. Framing caution as a defense against deep-seated corruption.
But the public, the netizens, they didn't seem to spend much time weighing the pros and cons of his caution, did they? Once these arguments hit the internet, the safety link, the tax critique, the gold bar defense, the reaction was huge, fast, and, well, mostly pretty negative from what I saw.
Oh, absolutely. The reaction online was almost instant and, yeah, overwhelmingly critical.
Yeah.
It really shows the level of public skepticism these days. We basically saw 4 main themes pop up again and again in the comments.
Okay, what was the first one?
Theme A was probably the most common, accusations of opportunism. People flat out said he was just taking advantage of the situation, the school incidents, for political gain. Lots of comments about him being constantly focused on overthrowing the government instead of offering real solutions. The general feeling was, he just wants to climb higher.
That suggests people are tired of seeing tragedies used for political points. Okay, what was theme B?
Theme B was heavy on sarcasm and just dismissing it all. People were calling it daydreaming or speaking nonsense. Some even called the whole thing a funny joke.
Wow. Mockery. That really shows a lack of respect for the argument itself, doesn't it? Treating it like political theater rather than a serious call for change.
Pretty much. Which leads into theme C, questioning his credibility. This was the why not you and all.
Turning it back on him.
Exactly. Netizens started pointing out that changing the federal government might not magically fix safety issues. They brought up states run by his own party, often mentioning Kelantan,
Right.
and saying, look, those places aren't perfectly safe either. They still have crime, security issues.
So the argument was, if problems mean the government should be replaced, what about the problems in areas you control? Why haven't you been replaced?
Precisely. It undermines his claim to the moral high ground. If you use school safety as your main argument, people are going to ask if schools are perfectly safe under your party's watch, too.
That's a tough point to counter. And the final theme, theme D.
Theme D was maybe the most ethically focused. A lot of people felt strongly that the tragedies involving schools shouldn't be politicized like this.
Just leave the tragedy out of the politics.
Yeah. They argued that school security, societal violence, these are really complex issues. They need everyone working together, not partisan attacks. They felt these problems would likely still exist no matter who's in power.
So you have this major political figure linking a really sensitive issue like child safety and economic hardship, things people feel deeply, to call for a change in government.
Right. A powerful combination.
But instead of widespread agreement, he gets hit with this wave of public doubt, focusing almost entirely on his motives and whether his party could actually do any better. People are looking very closely at the messenger and not just the message.
It really highlights that tension. You have a politician using crisis and economic pain to argue for change, met immediately by public skepticism about his own credibility and intentions.
So it leaves us with a big question, really. When a prominent politician uses a crisis like this, claiming it proves that the government has failed, where do people draw the line? How do you tell the difference between a valid, serious criticism and just, well, political maneuvering to grab power? That's the judgment call facing everyone, isn't it? Especially with elections always on the horizon. Remember to like and subscribe for more videos like this.